My name is Ava, and I'm 27 years old. I work a creative job at a software company in Florida. From the outside, it might seem like I have a smooth, easy life, but at home, things are far from ideal. A year ago, my dad's company went bankrupt without warning. Since then, I've had to move back to my hometown to live with my parents and younger sister, Aria. Our family now depends on my income to stay afloat. One evening, while we were sitting together, my mom brought up dinner plans. Ava says she wants pork steaks tomorrow, she said casually. I sighed and replied, we're running low on money for groceries. We can't even afford pork. Can someone else help out with the food budget? Mom gave me a pleading look, but before she could respond, Aria chimed in. Big sis, you're not giving enough money for food, she said bluntly. I was taken aback. What do you mean? I'm already contributing $10,000 a month. That should be more than enough, I shot back. Aria rolled her eyes. Prices are higher now, $10,000 isn't enough for a family of 4 anymore. I couldn't contain my frustration. If $10,000 isn't enough, why don't you get a job and contribute too? I snapped. Mom jumped in to defend Aria. It's hard to find a job these days. I feel bad for her. I clenched my fists in frustration. Aria claimed to be looking for work, but it was clear she wasn't putting in any real effort. To make matters worse, I'd discovered that part of the money I gave for household expenses was secretly being handed to Aria by my mom as pocket money. Finally, I'd had enough. If managing expenses here is so tough, why don't we sell this house and move to Grandma's hometown? We could work at her Italian restaurant and save on food expenses with the free pizza and pasta. But Mom immediately dismissed the idea. No way. I'm not going back there, she said firmly. It was frustrating. My grandma owns a thriving Italian restaurant in Miami. Working there would solve so many of our problems, but Mom couldn't stand the idea of dealing with Grandma's strict rules, especially when it came to making pizza. My dad chimed in with his usual argument. Why ask Grandma for help? We should be supporting ourselves. Depending on her is just being spoiled. Spoiled? I wanted to scream. I was the one shouldering all the responsibilities while my sister lounged around. Aria is 25, more than capable of working a part-time job while searching for something permanent. I suggested this, but Mom was quick to counter. Aria helps around the house. She doesn't have time for a job. What? What are you talking about? I asked incredulously. I've never seen Aria do any housework. Dad chimed in to defend her. She helps out. She carries dishes to the sink after meals, does her laundry sometimes, and even gives me shoulder massages. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The so-called housework they were praising was basic stuff any kid could do. Meanwhile, I woke up early every day to cook breakfast for the entire family, pack my dad's lunch, handle the household finances, and manage our taxes. The weight of everything was crushing, and I couldn't help but wonder how much longer I could keep carrying it all. My parents have always favored my younger sister, Aria. It's been that way since we were kids. People say I'm pretty too, but Aria has always been considered more graceful and charming. That's why she's always received special treatment from our parents. You'd think I'd just leave this toxic situation, but it's complicated. Moving out isn't an easy option for me right now, so I endure the stress every day. One day, I noticed that Aria wasn't around the house. I assumed she'd just gone out like usual, but when she didn't come back the next day, or the day after that, I started getting suspicious. Then, one evening, as I came home and headed to my room, I overheard my parents talking in the living room. What they said shocked me. I can't wait for the souvenirs from Louisiana, my mom said, sounding excited. Aria's so lucky, relaxing on those beautiful beaches and eating at fancy restaurants. I want to go to Louisiana too, my dad added. Maybe we should all go together next time. I couldn't stay silent any longer. Wait, what are you talking about? Are you saying Arya is in Louisiana right now? I asked, utterly confused. My parents looked startled but confirmed it. Yes, she's in Louisiana, they said casually. I was stunned. But how? She doesn't have any money. I've been cutting back on my own spending just to save. Oh, she won a trip in a sweepstakes, my mom explained. Arya's always been lucky with things like that. I couldn't believe it, but for the moment, I decided to accept their explanation. However, the next day at work, I received a call from my credit card company, a call I wasn't expecting. I don't use my credit card much, so when they informed me about high charges over the past 4 days, I was floored. I haven't made any big purchases, I told the customer service agent nervously. How much was spent? $20,000, the agent replied. My heart sank. I immediately knew who was behind it, Arya. She may have won the hotel stay and plane tickets, but she'd clearly been using my credit card for everything else, shopping, meals, and who knows what else. Determined to get to the bottom of it, I called her right away. What's going on, Arya? Explain yourself. I demanded. Oh, hey, sis, she replied, completely unfazed. I thought you'd be waiting for your souvenirs. Stop joking around. You've been using my credit card without asking, haven't you? I shot back, my anger boiling over. Arya didn't even try to deny it. Did you notice? It was an accident, she said casually. An accident? You went through my stuff, took my card, and spent $20,000 in 4 days. What were you thinking? Using someone's credit card without permission is a crime. I snapped. She laughed it off. It might be a problem if it were someone else's card, but we're family, Ava. You should really study up on these things. Her flippant attitude made my blood boil. How could you spend that much money so fast? I asked incredulously. Well, besides the free flight and hotel, I had to pay for all the other activities, shopping, meals, you know, the essentials, she said nonchalantly. I couldn't believe the audacity. Arya had crossed every possible line, and I wasn't sure how I'd deal with the fallout. I couldn't believe it. Arya had maxed out over $20,000 on my credit card, spending recklessly on fancy restaurants, branded items, and taxis during her trip. When I confronted her, she responded with her usual flippant attitude. Why are you so mad? She said casually. I only used the card because it was about to expire. Don't worry, sis, I'll leave the bill to you. With that, she cheerfully hung up, leaving me stunned and speechless. For the next few days, Arya kept trying to contact me, but I ignored her. Then she left me a voicemail, sounding oddly casual, I guess I really messed up this time. I'm so foolish. Her tone made me laugh bitterly, she was treating this like it was nothing. That evening, when I got home, my parents greeted me warmly as if nothing was wrong. Welcome back, they said. How can you act so calm? Arya's in a tough spot, my mom added, her tone accusing. Why did you block the card? She's in trouble. I couldn't believe their priorities. She used my card without permission, so of course I stopped it, I snapped. Apparently, Arya had tried to use the card again after I cancelled it, and when it didn't work, she panicked and lashed out. Since I wasn't responding to her, she turned to my parents for help. She's in trouble in another country, and you're just going to leave her stranded, my mom argued. Are you still trying to defend her? Just because we're family doesn't mean it's okay to steal $20,000. I can't believe you're siding with her after this, I said, furious. You're so heartless, my mom said. It's because of your attitude that you never get to go on trips. Arya was even planning to buy us souvenirs with your card. So what's the big deal? I was floored. You two are unbelievable. Are you even listening to yourselves? She's out there enjoying herself and using my card like a free pass, and you expect me to be okay with that? I couldn't take it anymore. You think she's thoughtful? Let me show you how thoughtful she really is. I pulled out my phone and played Aria's voicemail for them. Aria's angry voice filled the room. Asterisk, make the card usable, you miser. Our parents' cards are maxed out, and I can't use them. You're so cheap for not even giving me pocket money for this trip. How useless can they be? Asterisk. The room fell silent. My parents' expressions shifted from anger to shock as they processed what they had just heard. Without a word, they rushed to their room to check their credit cards. Minutes later, I heard frantic shouting. When I went to check on them, they looked livid. I can't believe it, my dad shouted. She used my card without asking, too. After everything we've done for her. She even took the bank book and maxed out our cards, my mom added, devastated. I feel so betrayed. Oh. I said coldly. Wasn't it supposed to be a kind act for her to buy you souvenirs? Didn't you say she was thinking of us and having fun for our sake? They both fell silent, their faces red with embarrassment. The reality of Aria's actions had finally hit them, and it was about time. When my mom nervously muttered, "But our money is still safe, right?" I couldn't help but feel disappointed. Their concern shifted entirely the moment they realized their finances hadn't been touched. Well, why don't you just raise the card limit and pay off the balance so Aria can use it again? I said, sarcasm dripping from my words. Let the kind Aria, who's trying to buy you souvenirs, have her way. That's not possible, my mom admitted. We don't have any savings left. What are we going to do? Aria's stuck out there with no money for food or anything. After a moment of chaos, my dad suddenly turned to me. Ava, please. We'll start fresh. We promise to work together to support this family. Just help Aria this one last time. What are you talking about? I asked sharply. Does working together finally include me now? Moved by my dad's plea, my mom unexpectedly knelt down in front of me. For a moment, I was stunned, but then I let out a bitter laugh. It's a little late for apologies now, I said. But my mom, desperate, continued. I swear I'll change, Ava. I'll do my best to support everyone from now on. I won't wrong you or Aria again. Despite everything, I couldn't stop laughing at the absurdity of the situation. My parents eventually retreated to their room, leaving me to consider my next move. Quietly, I took out a credit card that still had a valid expiration date. I'd been keeping it hidden, and an idea began to form. The next day, I approached my parents. Why don't you give this card to Aria? I suggested, holding up the card. You can even take a family trip together to Louisiana. It'll give you all a fresh start. Their faces lit up at the idea. Excitedly, they contacted Aria, and the three of them began planning the trip. I even helped book their flights online, watching them buzz with joy as I smiled to myself, knowing what was coming. After everything was set, I made a quiet phone call. 5 days later, my family returned from Louisiana, looking cheerful and well-rested. Aria greeted me with a big grin. Big sis. Thanks for letting us enjoy Louisiana. It's rare for you to come pick us up. Are you expecting souvenirs? Sorry, I didn't buy anything. Their carefree attitudes solidified my decision. Looks like you all had fun, I said casually. Was that the last big moment of your life? Aria blinked in confusion. What do you mean by last? Well, I said with a calm smile, I've decided to sell the house. The color drained from their faces. What? Did you really sell the house? My mom stammered. What's going on? I gestured toward the for sale sign they hadn't noticed before. I've already sold it. I packed up our belongings and sent them to the new place. Someone's coming to pick us up shortly. Their shock turned to panic. You sold the house without telling us? Why? Looking at their stunned faces, I explained, a real estate agent I know has been interested in this property for a while. I always said no because I thought keeping the house made sense. But recently, I changed my mind. I realized selling this house and living on my own would finally give me financial and mental freedom. As they processed my words, the reality of their new situation began to sink in. This time, the fresh start wouldn't be theirs, it would be mine. When my parents protested, "You can't sell the house on your own. It's illegal. This house belongs to Dad, not you." I stayed calm and replied, "Oh, you seem pretty upset about this. But what if I told you that the house and land are actually in my name?" Their eyes widened in disbelief. "What? That's impossible." "Dad," I began, "do you remember when you couldn't pay the property taxes and came to me for help? I agreed to cover them on the condition that we change the house's ownership to my name. You signed the papers back then. Surely you haven't forgotten?" My dad's face fell as the realization hit him. "Ah, that's right." Smiling, I continued, "I didn't move out of this house because it was already legally mine. I was just waiting for the right time to take action. It wasn't easy since you were always home, but sending you all to Louisiana gave me the perfect opportunity." With the house empty, I finalized the sale. They stared at me, stunned. "What?" they gasped. As I mentioned earlier, I said calmly, "Your luggage has already been sent to your new destination, so there's no need to worry. A pickup will be here shortly." "Pickup? What are you talking about?" my mom asked, still in disbelief. "Grandma is waiting for all of you," I replied with a smile. "She's excited to see everyone. She even told me to send your belongings ahead. Get ready for daily pizza making and cleaning duties at her restaurant." Their jaws dropped. "Grandma? You mean my mom?" my dad asked, his voice shaking. "That's right. I talked to her, and she agreed to take you all in. She's eager to knock some sense into everyone. She's already set up jobs for you at her Italian restaurant." Arya burst out, "We can't go to Grandma's. We don't want to." "Oh, that's fine," I said with a shrug. "But without a house, jobs, or savings, how do you plan to survive? And don't forget about the credit card bill. How are you going to pay it off?" "What are you talking about?" my mom asked nervously. "The card is in your name, right?" I smirked. "Oh, you thought it was in my name? You should have checked more carefully. That card is actually in someone else's name." "No way," my mom muttered, pulling out the card. Her face went pale as she read the name printed on it. This card is in Arya's name?" "Exactly," I said. "That credit card was one I found in Arya's room. It was issued when she started her first job, though she quit shortly after. She never canceled the card, and it seems she never used it until now." Arya's face turned white. "What? But I've spent so much. What am I supposed to do now?" "Well," I said, "since the card is in your name, you're responsible for paying it off. And the best way to do that is to work hard at Grandma's restaurant." Arya continued protesting, but our parents, now realizing the gravity of the situation, fell silent. When Grandma arrived, they had no choice but to go with her to Miami. Under her strict supervision and the guidance of her veteran restaurant employees, they learned to work hard, often shedding tears along the way. Over time, the $230,000 charged to the credit card was fully repaid, with Grandma ensuring every penny was accounted for. She even took a portion of my parents' salaries to reimburse me for the living expenses I had previously covered. With my family now occupied under Grandma's firm but fair rule, I moved into a cozy apartment closer to my workplace. My new life was peaceful and fulfilling, and for the first time in years, I was able to enjoy the freedom I had worked so hard to earn. One evening, as I stood on my balcony watching the city below bathed in the warm hues of the setting sun, a sense of relief washed over me. The weight I had carried for so long was finally lifting. Yet, amidst the calm, a faint sense of loneliness lingered. Just then, my phone rang. Seeing Grandma's name on the screen, I hesitated before answering. "Hello, Grandma," I said. "Hello, Ava. How are you doing?" she asked, her voice kind and steady. "I'm fine," I replied, though unsure of what this call might bring. "That's good," she said, her tone softening. "Actually, I wanted to talk about Arya and your parents. They're starting to change, especially Arya. She's been helping a lot with the work, and your parents are beginning to reflect on everything, too." I remained silent as she continued, her voice laced with both concern and hope. "Ava, I know things have been incredibly hard for you. I think I understand how you feel. Family can sometimes be a heavy burden, but it's also something worth supporting. I hope, one day, you'll find it in your heart to forgive them." Her words struck a chord. Though her voice was hesitant, it carried an unshakable determination. "There's no rush," she added gently. "Take your time and think it over. When you're ready." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I understand, Grandma. I'll take my time to think about everything," I said softly before ending the call. As I stood there, the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving the city cloaked in the deepening shadows of night. A whirlwind of emotions stirred within me, anger, sadness, and yet, a faint flicker of hope for the future. When I returned to my room, my eyes were drawn to an old family photo on the shelf. In it, a younger Arya and I were grinning widely, our parents standing proudly behind us. The joy frozen in that moment tugged at my heart, stirring memories of simpler, happier times. If only we could go back, I thought wistfully, before reality reminded me how far we had drifted. As time passed, my life began to settle into a peaceful rhythm. At work, I was entrusted with leading a new project, a milestone that filled me with pride. In my personal life, I felt a growing sense of fulfillment and independence. One evening, as I wrapped up my day, my phone rang again. The caller ID showed an unknown number. Curious but cautious, I answered. "Hello, this is Ava." "Big sis, it's me, Arya," came a voice I barely recognized. Unlike her usual confident and brazen tone, her voice was soft, uncertain. "Arya?" I asked, surprised. "What's going on? Did something happen?" "Sorry for calling out of the blue," she began hesitantly. "Actually, I want to meet you. I need to talk to you." Her tone carried a sincerity I had never heard before. "Why do you want to meet?" I asked, my voice quiet, bracing for her response. "I want to apologize," she said, her words steady but filled with emotion. "Truly and deeply. I felt that a phone call wouldn't be enough to express how I feel. That's why I want to see you in person, to say I'm sorry, face to face." The humility in her voice took me by surprise. I stayed silent, listening as she continued. "If it's too hard for you to meet, I'll understand," she said. "I just want to respect your feelings." After a pause, I finally responded. "All right. Let's meet next Sunday at 3 p.m. at the cafe near the station." "Really?" she said, her voice brightening with relief. "That makes me so happy. Thank you, big sis. Thank you so much." As the call ended, I leaned back in my chair, emotions swirling inside me. Perhaps this was the beginning of something new, something better. After I hung up the phone with Arya, I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. Agreeing to meet her felt like a leap of faith. I wasn't sure if it was the right decision, but deep down, I hoped it might lead to something positive. The day of our meeting arrived, and I found myself at the cafe earlier than planned. Sitting there, my heart raced with a mix of nervousness and anticipation. Time seemed to slow, each tick of the clock stretching longer than the last. Then, finally, the door opened, and Arya walked in. She looked different. Gone was her usual polished appearance, her face was free of makeup, her clothes were modest, and, most striking of all, her eyes reflected a sincerity I hadn't seen before. She approached my table cautiously and immediately began to speak. "Big sis, I'm truly, truly sorry," she said, her voice trembling. For a moment, I was at a loss for words. The guilt and remorse radiating from her were palpable. "Arya," I started, but she interrupted, her voice thick with emotion. "Working at Grandma's place made me realize how much I relied on you," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I took you for granted all these years. I finally understand how hard it's been for you, always putting us first and never thinking about yourself." Tears streamed down her face as she opened up, reflecting on her past actions. She spoke about the lessons she had learned working at Grandma's restaurant, how she had leaned on me without appreciating my sacrifices, and the growth she had experienced. I listened quietly, her words stirring something deep within me. With each heartfelt apology, the anger and sadness I had carried for so long began to dissolve. It felt as though a heavy weight was slowly being lifted from my heart. "Thank you, Arya," I said softly when she finished. "I've taken your words to heart." What followed was an honest, open conversation. We spoke about everything: our lives, our struggles, and even our hopes for the future. For the first time in years, it felt like we were truly connecting. As we prepared to leave, Arya handed me an envelope. "This is just the beginning," she said, her voice steady but emotional. "I've been working hard at Grandma's place, and I'll keep doing my best." Inside the envelope was money she had saved from her hard work. Holding it, I could feel the genuine effort and growth behind her gesture. It warmed my heart. Months later, I visited Grandma's house again. This time, my parents were there too. To my surprise, they apologized sincerely for everything. Their words, like Arya's, carried the weight of genuine reflection and change. That evening, we shared a family meal together, something we hadn't done in what felt like forever. The warmth of being with my family again was almost overwhelming. I knew I couldn't forgive everything instantly, but their efforts gave me hope that, one day, I could. Before I left, Grandma pulled me aside and shared a few wise words. "Ava, you've grown so strong," she said, her voice gentle. "But as important as that strength is, don't forget the kindness you still carry. That's the most important thing." She hugged me tightly, and in that embrace, I felt years of pain and tension melt away. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I realized this was the beginning of a new chapter for my family and me. The weight I had carried for so long finally started to lift, leaving room for something lighter, something hopeful.